Without objection, the gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the United States Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, where it enumerates the powers of Congress, one of those powers is, as I'm reading, to coin money, regulate the value thereof, and of foreign coin. In 1913, Congress abdicated its responsibility and its duty over to the Federal Reserve. And it's unconstitutional that we've done so. And it has caused some disastrous effects. I thank my friend, Mr. Meadows, for yielding me time to speak on behalf of H.R. 24, the Federal Reserve Transparency Act, better at the Fed. This is the same bill that passed the U.S. House in the 112th Congress by overwhelming bipartisan majority. This is a vital piece of legislation that will help to usher in a new area of transparency in this nation's monetary policy. And I'm pleased to speak on its behalf with my colleagues. Over the century since its inception in 1913, the Federal Reserve has controlled our nation's monetary policy and therefore our economy under a veil of secrecy. Throughout these last 100 years, Congress has only exercised a relative small degree of oversight of the Federal Reserve. This lack of accountability has led to grievous consequences, and this must end. For instance, since the Federal Reserve establishment in 1913, the value of the U.S. dollar has fallen 95%. In other words, the value of today's dollar is approximately worth 1 nickel of what a dollar was worth in 1913. What this does is cause a dramatic decline in the value of the U.S. dollar, and it's driven by easy money policies of the Federal Reserve. What's this mean in practical terms for the American people? The steady decline of the U.S. dollar punishes thrift and savings. It erodes the value of those savings and harms older Americans living on fixed incomes. Just as bad, the expansion in money supply under the Federal Reserve has led to an unstable environment of booms and busts that have wrecked the financial security and stability of average Americans. This hurts poor people and senior citizens and the middle class the absolute most. Rich people will do fine with the policies of the Federal Reserve. Wall Street bankers and the big money folks are fine, but the policies of the Federal Reserve hurt poor folks. It hurts senior citizens. It hurts the middle class. It's not fair. Since the 2008 financial crisis, the Federal Reserve's balance sheet has grown. Since 2008, it has grown at an unprecedented rate and now contains $4 trillion worth of assets. At the same time, the enactment of Dodd-Frank financial reform has granted the Federal Reserve a greater role than ever in managing our economy and overseeing the regulation of our financial system. And yet, in spite of the undeniable, okay?
I was expired.
I will yield the gentleman as much time as he may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
Okay, thank you. In spite of the undeniable importance of the Federal Reserve, current law specifically prohibits audits of the Federal Reserve's deliberations, discussions, or actions on monetary policy. In 2011, a partial audit of the Federal Reserve required by Dodd-Frank law found that the Fed has loaned $16 trillion to financial institutions, some of which were not even American, between 2007 and 2010. This incredible sum was quietly loaned out with no public notice and no congressional oversight. If this sort of activity is brought to light by just a partial audit, then I believe that this further highlights the absolute necessity of a full audit. This bill will require a full audit of the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve and the Federal Reserve banks within 12 months of enactment. The Federal Reserve is a creation of Congress, and it must, therefore, be subject to the oversight and regulation of Congress. I must recognize and commend the leadership and years of work by my friend and colleague, Paul, on this important issue. Last Congress, Dr. Paul's bill amassed a bipartisan coalition that saw this legislation passed in a 327-98 vote. I'm deeply honored to carry on this legacy of Dr. Paul. I urge my colleagues here in the House to support this important piece of legislation, and I urge our friends in the Senate to take up this bill's counterpart, my medical colleague, Senator Rand Paul's S-209. And I yield back.
The gentleman from Maryland is recognized.